We will now have a panel discussion entitled Comparison of Inventive Steps Using a Hypothetical Case. I'd like to introduce the panelists. Mr. Hattori Satoshi, Japan Patent Office, Executive Chief Administrative Judge of the Trial and Appeals Department. Ms. Xiaohua Chen, who spoke earlier, China National Intellectual Property Administration, Deputy Director of the Reexamination and Invalidation Department of Patent Office. Mr. Sawono Stikno, Indonesia Ministry of Law and Human Rights, member of the Patent Appeal Commission. Ms. Ann N. Edlon, Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, Assistant Director of the Bureau of Patents. Mr. Hyun Chekal, Korean Intellectual Property Office, Presiding Administrative Judge at Intellectual Property Trial and Appeals Board. Mr. Danny Yap, Intellectual Property Office of Singapore, International Senior Patent Examiner. And this session shall be moderated by Mr. Tsuruya Yuji, the Japan Harajuku Sogo Patent Attorney and the principal. Now we'd like to ask Mr. Tsuruya to take the floor. Mr. Tsuruya, please. Thank you very much. Thank you for your introduction. My name is Tsuruya. I will be serving as the moderator today. Nice to see you all. Now we'd like to start a panel discussion. But before that, I'd like to review the materials that I posted on the website in advance regarding the hypothetical case we'll be discussing, which is an interactive answer display terminal case. I'd like to give you a quick overview of what has been already posted. So this is a base. This should serve as a basis for the discussion. I think it is important for all the participants to understand it fully. So allow me to take some time to introduce to you the hypothetical case. Please refer to the slide 1. This is a background technology. We have seen many different technologies that can be seen here. For example, there could be analysis system of voice information of users, and then utilizing AI, there could be the analysis of voice information of users, and the extraction of users' intention follows. And then, for example, the requests and the questions and complaints of the users, they would be extracted, and then supporting handling users more appropriately and promptly. So this has been done. And in various fields, this kind of operation takes place. Up until now, or in the past, this has been solely handled by humans, but now it is now being replaced by the machines. In this hypothetical case, the assumption here is that this has been submitted in the past for the Patent Office. So here we will have a discussion about the inventive steps in order to prevent the discussion from the sprawling. I think it is important to focus on certain things. So I'd like to work on whether the problem is solved or not. So there could be many factors. So we'd like to omit all these discussions, but we'd like to focus on the items 1 to 4. I'd like to explain that later on. So I'd like to focus solely on the inventive steps in our discussion. Moving on to the next page. So this is about the hypothetical case. The problem to be solved in this case is to reduce the feeling of distance between users and business operators and to build a closer user-business operator relationship. So this is the problem to be solved, and this is the problem written on the application. Then here is the essence of the means for solving the problem. displaying a virtual operator imitating an employee who handles users on a communication terminal. As can be seen on the right hand side, you have the virtual operator, and then the up part of the virtual operator has larger movement when a message is played. So this is the means to the solution of the problem. This is the essence of the means for solving the problem. Next slide, please. This looks into the claims or the scope of the claim. Since this is the definition of the invention, it is important to see this because this should be the foundation of the discussion. So allow me to read it aloud. So please note that this is a claim submitted. Information providing system, including a server and a communication terminal, wherein said server transmits an answer messaging for a user's voice information transmitted from a communication terminal, or an inquiry message if the answer message cannot be specified to the communication terminal. So the servers would handle the issues related to the messages. So the communication terminal is connected. So the said communication terminal displays a virtual operator for imitating an employee who handles users, wherein the virtual operator is displayed so that a part of the virtual operator has larger movement when the answer message or the inquiry message is played than when the answer message or the inquiry message is not played. So this is a claim of patented invention rather. Moving on to the next page. We now look at the documents for the prior arts. So this is the assumption that the prior art documents are presented. And this is the document 1 or D1. An interactive processing system that responds to a user's voice question only by text and voice. A terminal device is a mobile phone such as a smartphone, tablet, terminal, or the like. I talked about the problem for this issue, which is to reduce the distance between the business and the users. So for this matter, this issue is not displayed, or this issue is not decided. So here, the D1 does not disclose the problem to be solved by the patented invention to reduce the feeling of the distance between users and business operators and build a closer user-business relationship, and displaying a virtual operator is not disclosed either. Now I'd like to look closely into this invention. So we looked into this in the entire body, and then they certified this as such. An interactive processing system including a server unit and a user terminal device, wherein the user terminal device transmits a user voice question to the server unit. The server unit transmits an unexpected answer or an inquiry question corresponding to the user voice question to the user terminal device, and the user terminal device outputs by voice and displays the expected answer or the inquiry question. So that's what is written here. Is it accepted or approved? Next slide. Here, identical features between patented invention and D1 inventions are as follows. This is clearly stated on this screen. information providing system including a server and a communication terminal wherein said server transmits an answer message for a user's voice information transmitted from a communication terminal or an inquiry message if the answer message cannot be specified to the communication terminal. Said communication terminal plays the answer message or the inquiry message. So these are the identical features between patented invention and D1 invention. Next page. Then this page describes the differences or in the features between patented invention and D1 invention. So features between patented invention and D1 inventions are as follows. The patented invention displays a virtual operator for imitating an employee who handles users on the communication terminal, whereas the D1 invention does not display a virtual operator. This is the first difference. Furthermore, the patented invention states the virtual operator is displayed so that a part of the virtual operator has larger movement when the answer message or the inquiry message is played than when the answer message or the inquiry message is not played, whereas the D1 invention does not disclose this specific matter. So in this point, they are different. So these are the differences which are acknowledged. Moving on to the next page, please. I would like to introduce to you a prior art document, which is document 2. It is premised that a plurality of the answer systems responding to a user's voice input are available via a communication terminal. So this is a prerequisite for this document 2. So the point here is the multiple number of answer systems are related. The communication terminal is a navigation device. However, if you look back into the problems to be solved for this matter, the D2 does not disclose a problem to be solved by the patented invention. Next slide. An agent image corresponding to each answer system is displayed on one screen while the plurality of answer systems are available in this document 2. This is agent A and agent B. So this corresponds to the plurality of answer systems, and they would move in one screen. These agents are simplified characters such as animals. The agent corresponding to the answer system is displayed when answering so that it opens a mouth as if it is speaking. In the document 2, while speaking, these characters open their mouths as if they were actually speaking. So this is what document 2 is about. Next page. So we looked into this technology shown in document 2. So in this slide, you see what has been acknowledged in looking into this technology of the document 2. A navigation device for displaying an agent on a display, wherein the agent is displayed so that the agent's mouth is opened when an answer voice data of a responding center is output from a speaker as compared with the case of waiting in order to display as if the agent is speaking. Here the point is agent i.e. the characters, would open their mouths when it is speaking.
Next slide, please. And document 3 is presented, making it a little more complex. But the 3 documents are presented. And this is a well-known technical example. That's how the document 3 is positioned. So as written, displaying a person imitating an employee who handles users as a still image in a voice dialogue system. Communication terminal is a reception terminal for visitors. This does not disclose the problem to be solved by the patented invention. So this kind of a well-known technology is written in document 3. Next slide. So well-known matter exemplified in document 3. Let's confirm what that was. It's as shown. In a voice dialogue system, a person who imitates an employee who handles users is displayed as a still image. This is a well-known matter. This well-known matter is described in many documents other than document 3, and there is no contention between the parties, the right holder and the party asserting invalidity. There's no contention between them that this is a well-known matter. So this patented invention and document 1 through 3, they were all explained. And as shown, each of the documents 1 to 3 match the patented invention in some aspects, but differ in others. By combining these documents, would the inventive step of the patented invention be denied or be affirmed? That is the theme we like to discuss in the panel discussion. That's the theme for today's discussion. Next slide, please. So we have 4 discussion points prepared to focus our discussions. 4 points. First point, this is about the problem to be solved. So as you see on the slide, is it reasonable to recognize an issue which is not explicitly disclosed in document 1 and 2, such as to facilitate media communication, as a well-known issue that does not need to exemplify literature and motivated to apply D2 technology to the D1 invention? That's the first question, first discussion topic. Now, facilitating media communication, that's a well-known problem that appears here. And there is no contention between the parties that this is a well-known issue. So combining documents 1 and 2, in combining them, how to use the problem, and also problem also is not written in D1 or D2. It's considered to be a well-known problem. So using that, is it possible when combining? That's the point of the discussion point 1. Secondly, teaching away. So is it reasonable to apply D2 technology? Well, D2 talks about the multiple response system like agents 1 and 2. So it's premised on multiple answer systems. So is it reasonable to apply D2 technology, which is multiple answer systems, to the D1 invention, which is a single processing system? Technically, to some extent, there is some distance between these two documents, and applying one document to the other with some distance between them, is that something that will teach away? So from the patent owner, there is a rebuttal, we assume. So the patentee insists, in D2, the reason why the agent is displayed to open the mouth is that users can recognize at a glance which center is responding to the user's voice input. Moreover, from the problem to be solved in document 2, to provide an answer system which can save a user the hassle of selecting an answer system when a plurality of answer systems responding to a user's voice input are available, there is an obstacle to applying D2 technology to a single interactive processing system such as the D1 invention. That's the rebuttal from the patent owner. Next slide, please. The discussion point 3, application of secondary reference and well-known matter to primary reference. Is it reasonable to deny the inventive step of the patented invention by applying D2 technology and the well-known matter exemplified in D3 to the D1 invention? So 3 documents appear in this case. From the patent owner, we have this rebuttal, we assume. And the content of that is combining the D1 invention applied to the D2 technology with the well-known matter exemplified in D3 means a 2-step change, so that we cannot accept that. So you're making that determination twice that it's easy. Moreover, it's premised that the D2 technology operates the mouth of the agent, simplified characters such as animals, in response to a statement, and the well-known matter exemplified in D3 is displayed as a still image, so that it is hindsight to apply the well-known matter to the D2 technology. So that's the assertion from the patent owner. So this one's a little complex, but we have raised these 3 discussion points. Next slide. And discussion point 4. Well, this is a sort of a wrap-up, comprehensive discussion, considering the problem to be solved, teaching away, and application of secondary reference and well-known matter to primary reference. Is the patented invention invalid? So it's a comprehensive conclusion. So let me talk a bit about determining inventive step. So in Japan, you can combine various approaches, but there's also EPO approach, which is a problem solution approach. So it was mentioned in the presentation by the Philippines. This problem solution approach also exists in contrast. So let's go to 17. This is the problem solution approach. So there are three main stages in this approach. First, you determine the closest prior art. Number two, you establish the objective technical problem to be solved. Now, objective technical problem, what is that? So that's written in the notes there. It's the difference of the claimed invention in terms of features between the claimed invention and the closest prior art. So this difference is also called distinguishing features. So you look at the difference and you identify the technical effect resulting from the distinguished features, and then you formulate the technical problem. So this patented invention and the main prior art, you compare between the two and you extract the objective technical problem in the second step. And so you consider whether or not the claimed invention starting from the closest prior art and the objective technical problem would have been obvious to the skilled person. So this is the problem solution approach practiced mainly by the EPO. So in Japan, it's a little different from the problem solution approach. So you look at it from various angles and you make a comprehensive decision. You look at the problem, you look at the factors that teach away. That's the Japanese approach. So there are multiple approaches. And as we heard from Singapore in their presentation earlier, there's the windsurfing approach that's also available. And so what is the difference is something that we need to monitor and understand. So with that, I have explained the material that has been given, and we want to have a discussion based on this. So this hypothetical case has already been presented to each of the participants, and they have looked into this. So I want to ask the views of each country. So for the issue 1, 2, 3, 4, well, number 4 is the final comprehensive decision. So the final conclusion for number 4, we're going to record that here. Japan, China, etc. So for number 4, we're going to write the final conclusion. If it's invalid, Y, yes. If it's valid, if the patent is deemed to be valid, it would be N for no. So we would write either Y or N in these boxes. And we will fill these boxes, and we shall see what is the final decision of all the countries. And looking at that, we'll have the final discussion. So I'd like to ask each country 5 minutes each. Sorry, the time is brief, but we ask that you present your answers to the issues number 1 through 4, or the discussion points 1 through 4. Each of the panelists, could you share what is the outcome of your consideration? So I'd like to first ask Japan, Mr. Hattori, Chief Judge of the TAD, please.
ありがとうございます。特許庁審判部首席審
Thank you very much. I am Hattori, Executive Chief Administrative Judge, JPO. I'd like to explain to you how we are looking at the inventive steps. So before answering the questions of this case, I'd like to briefly introduce the determination of inventive steps in Japan. For example, in a case like this one, where the primary reference invention is combined with other secondary reference inventions and the logic to deny invention step is attempted. As you mentioned earlier, whether there is a motive to combine each reference invention is examined from the viewpoint of technical field, subject matter, existence of commonality of action and function. If there is a motivation to deny inventive steps, the factors to affirm inventive steps, such as whether the patented invention has an advantageous effect compared to the reference invention, or whether there are circumstances that inhibit the combination of the reference inventions, are also examined. So, as I just said, the comprehensive way of looking at this is important, and the judgment is made by comprehensively evaluating these factors, including the earlier in the motivation. So it can be said that the fact that the primary reference invention and the secondary reference invention solve the common problem is an important element of motivation to deny the inventive steps. Now, I'd like to start with the item 1. Regarding the question of whether or not an invention can be denied motivated by a well-known problem, the answer is why. It is possible. In this case, there is no common problems explicitly described in document 1 nor document 2. Very unfortunately, it's not written. So that means that the clearly stated common problems did not exist. However, in the invention of a communication system with customers or users to which this patent invention and the reference invention belong, for example, it is obvious or well known that the task of facilitating communication is an issue in consideration of the technical common sense in the field, or that a person skilled in the art could easily conceive of the task. The court we find that the two reference inventions have such obvious issues in common and judges that the common issues are the basis of the motivation. Moving on to the next point, JPO believes that the fact that the document 2 technology assumes plural answer systems is an obstacle to applying it to the reference invention. Well, our answer is yes, it is possible to apply that. Reference 2 is indeed a technology intended to distinguish between agents related to multiple response systems. But the fact that there is a plurality of agents is not inseparable from the fact that each agent has its own display. So, although there are multiple number of agents, in terms of technology, it is not inseparable. So, it is possible to extract some technology based on this. In addition, there is nothing special about combining them. And furthermore, there is no particular technical obstacle to combining them. Item 3. Regarding point 3, the application of the indication of a person in document 3 technology, which is a well-known technology. This is about the combination of this technology with the reference. So JPO's answer is yes. As was mentioned, in examining motivation, it is necessary to pay attention to the so-called easy on easy, not to apply, i.e., not to apply multiple reference inventions in 2 steps or to overlap one reference invention in order to examine one difference. which is not the case in this hypothetical case. So this technology is well known. So it does not constitute easy on easy kind of the thoughts or processes. Although document 3 discloses a still image, and I think we know that this has been the rationale behind it as well. So although the document 3 discloses a still image of a person, the fact that the agent moves is already disclosed in document 2. So the application of the document constitutes the invention specification of this patent invention. So this is a summary of 1 through 3, which is the item number 4. In conclusion, as discussed in points 1 to 3, it is motivated to deny the patented invention by applying the document 2 and document 3 technologies to the reference invention, and even by referring to the specification. It is not recognized that the patented invention has any advantageous effect compared to the reference invention. Therefore, it can be said that the patented invention does not have inventive steps because it is easily conceivable by a person skilled in the art based on the reference invention and should be invalidated. So therefore, the JPO's answer is yes. Why? That's all from JPO. Thank you. So the answer was yes. I would like to put Y for JPO. So Y for Japan. Thank you very much. Moving on. We'd like to invite the Ms. Xiaohuo Chen of China. Please. この質問に一つ一つ私からも答えて。
For the question 1, the answer is yes. We think Doct 1 is the closest prior art. Comparing with the technical solution disclosed in Doct 1, the difference is that Doct 1 invention does not display a virtual operator. Based on the difference, the objective technical problem is that facilitate media communication. We see the objective problem. That means the problem derived in this way may not be what the applicant presented as the problem in the application. In Doct 2, the objective of the present invention is to provide an answer system which can save a user the hassle of selecting an answer system. When a plurality of answer systems responding to a user voice input are available, the user can recognize at a glance which center corresponds to the voice input. In short, the technical solution objective achieves the purpose of facilitating media communication. So we think it is reasonable to recognize the issue, even though the issue that does not clearly disclosed in Doct 1 and Doct 2. For the question 2, the answer is yes. We think one or more response systems are not defined in the claims of the disputed patent. In fact, the response system runs in the background. From the perspective of the user, she or he is interacting one-to-one with the response system every time. However, it may automatically switch to another answering system based on the content of the question, and this switch is automatically run by the subsequent program. However, the user can intuitively feel this switching through the image change. In Doct 1, There are only text and voice response, and there's no visual response on the user terminal. In this scenario, in order to have a better sense of interaction, some images or symbols are introduced. So the changes of symbols or images, people can intuitively feel that his or her problems can be responded to in time, and there will be a good user experience. So we think Dr. Chu gave such a teaching. For the question 3, the answer is yes too. Application. We think Dr. 3 disclosed a person who imitates an employee who handles users is displayed as a still image. Dr. 2 discloses an agent image corresponding to each answer system is displayed on one screen, while the plurality of answer systems are available. Dr. 1 discloses on one screen, while Dr. 1 discloses an interactive processing system that responds to a user's voice question only by text and voice. Dr. 2 gives the teaching that an image could be displayed dynamically on the terminal in order to handle users more properly. Dr. 3 exemplifies that the image could be a virtual operator. Therefore, Dr. 3 and Dr. 2 can give a teaching that an dynamic virtual operator image can display on a communication terminal, which is used in the system of Dr. 1. For the last question, the answer is yes, based on the present claim. But we think we want to say more because we think on the whole, that means from the description and claim, all of the information, we think maybe the granted patent may not be invalid. The reason is that if the actions of the virtual operator can completely imitate the natural behavior of human beings, it is very lifelike and vivid. That is creative in itself. However, the present claim cannot reflect this. So we think according to the present claim, maybe the answer is yes. But I think, in addition, the system in the granted patent can actively learn human problems, and through long-term accumulation, it will become more and more intelligent. If this information can be written into the claim, which also makes it process inventively. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Chen, the final conclusion is why? So I shall write why here. So I think we'll discuss each of the discussion points later, but I just show the final conclusion here. Next, we ask Indonesia. Mr. Sarvono Stikno, please.
For the time, let me share a small polling between the member of appeal committee, patent appeal committee. There is 14% among the 20 members of patent committee. The most of the participant is patent examiner. So the conclusion of the first problem, nearly 80% say yes. So most of the person did not add a comment, but this overwhelming yes. And there is the second question is nearly 50-50, but it's nearly 60% say yes. So there is perception on the participant. So the third question of it's 70% say yes. So the conclusion is also yes. So how we come to this conclusion? Before the polling, I share a table. Let me change the share. We make a table so the audience is easier to make conclusion. So I made 4-column table. This is the submitted application, D1, D2, D3. So audience can see with visual what is the difference between 4 column. So the background art is written there. So also the problem to be solved. Especially the fourth column, the D3, it's not explicit the problem that will be solved with the patent. So we also make the visual picture so the audience will easier to comprehend the 4 column. Okay, so our conclusion, the patent is not invention. So thank you for the time. Yes. Why?
ありがとうございました。
どうですまして。
Thank you. So the conclusion is why. So I shall write why. So later we shall discuss further the individual points, but the conclusion was why. Thank you. So let's go to the Philippines. Ms. Anne and Edilon, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So for item number 1, our answer is yes, it is reasonable to consider as a well-known issue or problem, one which is not explicitly disclosed in the prior art, so that the person skilled in the art is prompted to put together the prior art to solve a well-known problem. Since a person skilled in the art, by definition, is not only presumed to have at his disposal explicit and implicit teachings suggested by cited references, but also he has at his possession common knowledge in that field. So here, the field would be of wireless voice response communication technology, and the person skilled in the art is well aware that the application of a virtual operator involves communicating, facilitating additional type of media content apart from voice and text. So in other words, the use of a virtual operator in solving the underlying problem of feeling that distance concerns facilitating media communication which is an issue that is common knowledge to the person. Number 2, we believe that yes, it is reasonable to apply D2, which involves multiple answer systems, to D1, which involves a single interactive processing system. We believe so because while but it's reasonable to apply the two together because D2 not only concerns the same field of wireless response system, but also suggests that the use of a virtual operator or agent image can provide a solution to the underlying problem in the patented invention. Also, while D2 involves a multiple answer system, while D1 involves a single interactive system, incorporating the virtual operator of D2 to the system of D1 is not considered as a teaching away, but appears to be a straightforward modification related to the use of the D2 virtual operator to solve the problem in D1. So since both D1 and D2 not only relate to the same field of technology, but also teach the problem and solution in the state of the art, the person skilled in the art will have motivation to add these two together to come up with a wireless answer system defined by the patented invention. As to item number 3, the application of a secondary reference and well-known matter to the primary reference, yes, it is also allowable. The person skilled in the art in this scenario will start at a wireless voice answer system of D1, let's say. And when he realizes that there is a problem, particularly the feeling of distance between users and the business operator, in building, and since it affects, business client relationship, the person skilled in the art would find the solution in D2 and adopt the display of agent images by facilitating communication of another type of media content. So D3 now would give the person skilled in the art the idea to change the moving image of animals in D2 into moving images of a person. Therefore, the patented invention, but this is kind of skipping into item number 4, but the patented invention lacks inventive step for merely involving application of known means or known solutions in the state of the art. So to answer, our conclusion is the patented invention appears invalid because it falls within the abilities of a person skilled in the art having access to D1, D2, and D3 at his disposal. We reach this conclusion by using the problem solution approach. So for step 1, determining the closest prior art, that is D1, which we consider as the closest prior art because it is from the same field, same technical field, and has more features in common with the patented invention. We have distinguished the difference between D1 and the prior art. So this is the said communication terminal displays a virtual operator for imitating an employee who handles users, wherein the virtual operator is displayed so that a part of the virtual operator has larger movement when the answer message or the inquiry message is played. And then based on that, the objective problem is to reduce the feeling of distance between users and business operators and build a closer user-business relationship by making the communication more engaging. And our conclusion is indeed a person skilled in the art adding D1 will only have to adapt the virtual operator of D2 and D3 to solve the underlying problem and arrive at the system claimed by the patented invention. So that is our conclusion that yes, it is invalid. Thank you very much.
エディロンさん、どうもありがとうございます。結論としては、
Thank you very much. So your conclusion here is Y. So I put Y, yes, for Philippines. Thank you very much. Moving on, we'd like to invite Mr. Fonchekal from Korea.
The first discussion point, my answer is yes. The issue to facilitate media communication does not need to exemplify literature because it can be expected from the element and their operational procedure in D1 or D2. D1 disclosed speech balloons to communicate between the user and the system in Figure 3. This can facilitate media communication. Therefore, it is reasonable that D1 disclosed the issue of facilitating media communication implicitly. D2 disclosed animal characters and speech balloons to represent agents and their speaking in Figure 3. This can also facilitate media communication. Therefore, it is reasonable that D2 disclosed the issue of facilitating media communication implicitly. In this regard, there is enough motivation to apply D2 to D1. In addition, motivation does not need to exemplify literature because it is not so difficult to combine D1 and D2 if we consider that D1 and D2 belong to the same technical field and D1 and D2 disclosed automatic communication between a user and server by using voice recognition. For the second discussion point, my answer is yes. The basic idea of D2 is to make a user to recognize easily which center or which agent corresponds to the user by using agent characters. It includes two single interactive communication, not only the interactive communication between the user and agent A, but also the interactive communication between the user and agent B. In other words, D2 is not teaching away from using one user and one specific agent for a single interactive communication. Therefore, it can be said that applying D2 to D1 is easy to the person in the relevant field. For the third discussion point, my answer is also yes. D2 uses characters such as animals to display agents who answer the user's queries and make the agent's mouth open while one of agents is answering. D3 uses the image of virtual person to imitate an employee and answers visitors' queries. Even though D2 and D3 use different technologies, voice recognition technology versus telephone technology, they have the same displaying elements such as imitating, answering part, agent A, and person. Therefore, substituting an animal character in D2 with the virtual person in D3 is only a matter of simple design change. Finally, as explained before, combining D1, D2, and D3 is easy for the person in the relevant field, and they cover all elements in the claim of patented invention. Therefore, the patented invention should be invalid. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jekyll-san. So, your conclusion is yes. Why? So I put Y here.
次に、
Next, Singapore. Mr. Danny Yap, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the first question, my answer is actually no. There seems to be two questions here. The first question is it reasonable to recognize an issue is well known, even though it's not explicitly disclosed in the prior art? My answer to that is actually yes, it is actually reasonable, because the person skilled in the art would have common general knowledge and does not need to depend on whether the issue is explicitly disclosed in the prior art. However, I noticed that the identified issue is to facilitate media communication, and this term appears to be very broad and may not be enough motivation to combine D1 and D2 to arrive at the patented invention. As you can see from D1, D2, and including the patent itself, these three documents appear to have different aspects of facilitating media communication, and they solve this problem in significantly different ways. So the motivation to combine D1 and D2 is not strong. For the second question, my answer is also no. It does not appear to be reasonable to apply D2 technology to D1. In this case, the main reason is that the purpose of opening the mouth in D2 is to indicate whether the answer came from the first center or the second center. And this is different from the purpose of the larger movement of the virtual operator in the patented invention, which is for reducing a feeling of distance. So D2 itself appears to teach away from the patented invention. And looking also between D1 and D2, where D1 discloses a single interactive processing system, and D2 discloses a multiple answer system, the two systems, the two kinds of technologies appear to be quite different. And it would not seem to be obvious to a person skilled in the art, looking at D1 and D2, to try and combine them, and then yet arrive at the patented invention. So the teachings of D2 appear to teach away from the teachings of D1. For the third question, my answer is also no. The patented invention appears to be inventive. So the key consideration here is that how much selection is required to isolate the separate disclosures from the different documents. And it looks that there is a high degree of selection required in this case to isolate specific features from D1 and D2 and arrive at this invention. So because of this, it will not seem to be obvious to a person skilled in the art to, without hindsight, to pull out or select the separate features from D1, D2 and combine them to arrive at a patented invention. So in my view, the patented invention appears to have an inventive step. So my conclusion is no. The patented invention appears to be valid for the reasons that I already gave. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yap. So the answer from Singapore is N. I put N for Singapore. For applicant, it is a favorable result. So N is to maintain, or this is valid. So N means favorable for the applicant. Thank you very much. So in order to deepen our discussion, I'd like to ask further questions. In our discussion here, it was not that we reached the same conclusion. So then in that situation, that was uninteresting. But here, I think this theoretical case is a borderline case. So that means that we were able to have different opinions. So that was the sole purpose for this for the future. And because of the fact that we have different conclusions, then in a situation we are able to learn from this, and we could think about the analogy, and also we could think about the future directions. So this would serve as a very foundation for the future. So the output for this discussion was very good. So I think it is important to deepen the discussion by asking some more questions, since we have some more time left. So I would like to talk about 3 different things. So we had 3 different aspects. So the first point was a very important issue. First, this is about the problem to be solved. So this is a question to Ms. Adilon from the Philippines. The Ms. Adilon in Philippines. I understand that you are utilizing the problem-solving approach that has been the problem solution the technique which has been widely used in European countries. So your answer, the final conclusion is yes. Now about the discussion point 1, problem to be solved. In the problem solution approach, do you think this has a high affinity with your problem solution approach? Well, I'm not quite sure. So in your problem solving approach that you are talking, is this a valid question? So here you see the difference between the reference inventions and the set invention. So you try to look into the differences, and in order to fill the gap, what were some of the problems? So this is the issue that you had. So for the well-known problems, regardless of whether there is a well-known problem, you have a second step. So if you see the differences between the patent and the D1, and then in that situation, this can be determined between the patent and the D1, and the well-known issue should not be included in your decision-making process. So your final conclusion is Y, so it's okay, but the basic understanding of the basic idea in the Philippines is that you place emphasis on the well-known issue. But could you tell us a bit about its relevance to this problem solution approach? So when this question was raised, did you feel odd to use the approach for this discussion point 1?
No, thank you for the question, but no, it was not odd. We always consider a person's the viewpoint of a person skilled in the art as including his knowledge with regard to the art. So therefore, if an issue is well known in that field, then we assume all the time that the person skilled in the art is aware of this. So that's how we think of a person skilled in the art. He has knowledge based not only on prior art, but also with regard to topics which are not seen in that particular set of prior art, but which can be prevalent in the field. We also take the viewpoint that a person skilled in the art is not a particular person, but can be a group of people who are well familiar with that particular field. So this was not an unusual question. The consideration of whether a well-known issue, which is not explicitly disclosed, should be considered by the person skilled in the art. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Yes, we had a very good understanding. Thank you so much for explaining it clearly. And that was a very effective comment to facilitate our understanding. Thank you so much. And then, moving on. For the first point, maybe this should be placed emphasis. This is a question to Korea. Mr. Chekal, would you like to answer?
別分野という点が触れられて、
Same technical field is what you mentioned for this topic 1. So the problem to be solved and the same technical field, both terms were used in your comments. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that? So same technical field. From what perspective? How is that related to this issue number 1?
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I think the problem to be solved is highly related to the possibility of combination the prior arts. So that's why the technical field is very important. Before we think about the technical field, I think it is very important to think about the date of filing. If this invention was filed in 1930, the problem to be solved issue is very, very important because there is no electronic devices. So also there is no technical example to facilitate media communication. However, if this application is filed recently, it is obvious. In other words, the electronic devices is to facilitate the media communication. Everyone knows this thing. So as Philippine speaker says, it is well-known issue. As I mentioned in previous my explanations, D1 and D2 does not disclose explicitly. However, if we look into the D1 and D2, it has the element of operation procedure which show the problem to be solved implicitly. So even though there is no explicit disclosure on the problem to be solved, this technology and problem to be solved is very obvious to the person in this field. Thank you, Chairman.
Chekal 様、ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much, Mr. Chekal. So you talked about the application date. So this is the kind of discussion that we are able to learn a great deal from you, filing date. So things are changing, especially the technologies. So against this backdrop of the progress of the technological advancement, it is important to look into the technological field. So it is important, needless to say, to pay attention to the technical field. Thank you very much for your comment. Then again, one more question about the first issue. This is for China. Chen-san, I'd like you to make an additional comment for the well-known problem. So, to what extent is it used as a motivation? So could you tell us a bit about the percentage or maybe the frequency of the use of the well-known issue? So I'm sure there are many other issues that you can take into account, but could you tell us a bit about the weight that you are placing on the well-known issue? Chen-san, would you like to answer?
Sorry, maybe I'm not sure the question. Okay.
わかりました。はい。
This is about the discussion point 1. So could you tell us about the weight to the in the practice of this system? So the problem, well-known problem. So well-known problem is used as the factor for the decision. So statistically, to what extent are you using this issue of well-known problem? So is it used often? This is a question.
Okay, I understand. In practice, China don't use well-known issue. We just see the objective technical problem. China's way is similar with the EPO's way. We find the closest prior art and try to determine the difference comparing with the closest prior art, and based on the different information, based on the technical facts, we will determine the objective technical problem. Even though the technical problem is very different with what the applicant presented as the problem. So we don't see some problem is well known. We just see from the information from the public information, the document from the whole application, we will find comparing with the closest prior art, the objective technical problem is what? So that's my answer. Thank you.
Ms. Chen, thank you very much. So for issue 1, I was able to understand the Chinese situation. So in China, you look at what's in the filing, that the emphasis placed there. I think that was the gist of the answer. So that was instructive. Thank you very much. So Indonesia, Mr. Stigno. So I have a question to you for the second discussion point. You said 50%, it was half and half when you took the poll. How did the people decide to vote yes or no? What was the reasoning, the grounds for choosing yes or no, when half of them chose yes and half chose no? So can you explain? Yep.
Yes. Okay. First of all, I have a question for JPO. My methods may be an inefficient to make poll to decision because in Patent Appeal Commission, the court will be odd number of person. 3 or 5. Uh, so uh, so the difference opinion is always came up, but we always make decision as a democratic way. So I will explain why 60% say yes and 40 more percent say no. So one person said that D1 and D2 have same interactive process. So it's similarity. So and one person said about D1 is new invention, but maybe not inventive step. So the decision is have mindset background between people that engage in this poll. So I mentioned that there is 14 people join the poll among the 20. So there is a lot of different opinion. It depends the background. So most of them is patent examiner, that the rest not patent examiner, only the expert on his field. So one of the possibility is because the expert fields consists of different fields. Only electrical related person is only 2% between 14, and most the expert is on chemical engineering, non electrical engineering, non IT, and law, and etc. Maybe the non IT related person elect or choose no, because the mindset about the what is it about the way of thinking of technical person, it's not comprehend with the from the person, because there is they are not electrical or information related person. Thank you. That is my answer.
ありがとう。
Thank you very much. We have a very good understanding now. In Indonesia, you had a discussion among people related to this. And thank you very much for disclosing how people think and how people draw conclusions. Thank you so much. So the next question is for Mr. Danny Yap from Singapore. For the discussion points 1 and 2, thank you very much for giving us a very clear conclusion. Yes, the final conclusion was no, which is the opposite to our yeses. But we were able to learn a great deal from what you said for the discussion point 1 and 2. So that was very convincing. Then my question here is about the point 1, which is to utilize the well-known problem. This here. When you have to make a decision or selection, whether it is the easy choice or difficult choice. When you have to make a difficult choice, then in that situation, the invention could be considered effective or valid. So I think you raised this point. So if the decision is complex, the patent could be valid. Well, this is not the kind of things that we generally or ordinarily think about. So in a short while, could you tell us a bit about the complexity of the selection? Could you give us a brief answer to all this matter?
Yes. Generally, when we combine documents, it is all right. One of the things we look at is whether the documents are in the same technical field. However, if you recall my slide previously, this is only one aspect we consider when we think about how to combine documents. So in this particular example, it seems that although the documents, I agree, they are all in the same technical field of interactive voice question and answer system. However, they seem to be concerned with different aspects of facilitating media communication. And so, a person skilled in the art who is only aware of D1 and D2 sitting there, not knowing, only having this knowledge, it would seem unlikely that he would come to the conclusion that to have a virtual operator that opens his mouth to improve the the communication between the virtual operator and the person is obvious. So because there is so much, it seems to me so many different aspects of facilitating media communication, to just be able to choose one aspect from here and one aspect from there, different documents, and to combine them, this selection would not seem to be obvious to a person who is skilled in the art.
Thank you very much. Thank you for explaining about the selection. Made it very clear to us with that additional explanation. It's a very instructive comment that you gave, something that we can learn from. And haven't asked Mr. Hattori yet. So, Chief Judge of TAD. So, maybe a general comment. Well, you talked about the advantageous effect. Advantageous effect. You emphasize that. You place importance on that. So could you perhaps talk about that, or some other topic if you so choose? In terms of effect, well, first, motivation is what we think about, and then you look and you compare that about the advantageous effect. So in making that comprehensive judgment, you look at the effect. And a separate topic about the problem, China, my Chinese counterpart, said that they emphasize what is in the filing, and I can understand that well. So in inventive step or support requirement, so problem should come from the filing and the specification, the claim or the specification. So there is that explicit problem, and then combining that is the ideal way. But when that is not available, what to do? The second challenge or effort is the issue. So a person skilled in the art using the common sense in the industry, can they find a common problem? Would that be a motivation? Well, I think that was the point of the question in this session. Thank you very much. It's time that we have to close. We have no more time remaining. I would have loved to continue this discussion, but I must close this panel discussion. So this symposium, we have people from government, administration, or people watching from administration, judicial, and legislative branches, and also people who are in practice, private practice, attorneys and patent lawyers, and the most important, inventors and the companies. I think they're also listening in. So many people are watching this program, and there will be more who will watch the archived content. And I think today's discussion will be very helpful to all of them. So the conclusion is that well, most said invalid, one country said valid, and I think that is a good thing, that we have difference of views, and when you have those differences, you have to look at each opinion, what is the emphasis, and perhaps we can start to think about incorporating the views of other countries to our country. So the fact that we had different views, I think, was quite significant. And so this divided judgment, the reason for that, I think we should study and consider, and that could then be fed back into our own decision making, and that would enhance the predictability of the result, the outcome, what would become patent, what would not, and that there should be predictability not just in one country, but all around the world. I think this kind of study will lead to enhanced predictability across the world. And if you have higher predictability of the result, then the next stage would be to enhance the process, to harmonize the process. So in that regard, this panel discussion, I think, was quite effective and significant. Sorry, I have gone over time, so I would like to declare the panel discussion closed. I want to thank all of the panelists for their frank views. Thank you for sharing them with us. And I want to thank the organizer, everyone involved in putting together this event. Thank you so much. I think many people made great contributions to organizing this, so I thank you deeply. With that, I close the panel discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for all the panelists and all the people who participated. With this, we'd like to close this panel discussion.